Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a video for you going over my knife disassembly toolkit. The tools that I use on a regular basis to do maintenance on folding knives. And I'm just going to kind of lead you back through this. I've done this before, but I think it's time for an update, so I can talk about elements that are brand new, as well as give kind of a bigger overview, because actually this turns out to be one of the most common types of viewer questions I get. People watch a disassembly video and ask, what kind of screwdriver was that? What oil do you recommend, etc. So I kind of want to put all that in one place. The very first element of my disassembly toolkit is these little mats right here. These are, I don't even know the brand name of them, but I'll go ahead, in fact, for all of these things, I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description of the video to an Amazon store that has links to every one of these items. If you want to buy these items there, you can certainly help the channel out by doing so. You're also more than welcome to go online elsewhere and find a better deal or something like that. No problem there. But anyways, this little mat here is it's heat resistant. It's meant to be static resistant. It's meant for electronics disassembly. But it actually has a number of really nice features used for that I use for knife disassembly. One of the biggest ones is that you can see here it's got a rim all around the outside, which means if a little tiny screw or something like that wants to start rolling, it's probably going to stop before it gets, before it falls off the table or something like that. That's a very nice thing. It also helps to trap oil. It helps to trap rubbing alcohol or any of the other tools, liquids that I'm using. And one of the really nice aspects is this area here where you've got these little pockets up here. What this means is that if I'm taking apart a knife that's, relatively complicated, something like the steel wheel cut jack here, I can go ahead and I can put the pivot screw here, and then I can put, and just kind of align these, like pivot goes here, then this screw goes here, then this screw goes here, and such that I always will put things back in the proper order in the knife. I just kind of do it in the same way that they're arranged on the knife. It's a nice little approach, and it offers you a little bit of extra sort of organization as you're doing this process. And considering that they're small, they're thin, they're easy to use, I absolutely highly recommend it. And I think it definitely beats this surface, which is, has a tendency to, absorb lube and whatnot. Next thing that I'll show off here is, of course, one of my favorite tools is Isopropyl Alcohol. It's rubbing alcohol. You just go down to your grocery store. I like the 91% stuff. It's got a little less water in it, but it's probably chemically true. I'm not a chemist. I believe that's the case, though. But anyways, it works well. And the reason I use this is because it removes gunk very effectively. It dissolves pretty much, evaporates, very, very quickly, and that, it's fine on the hands. I'm not using something nasty and ugly like Simple Green all the time. I'm just able to use something that's pretty straightforward. So I like this very much, and I have a big bottle that I refill from. So that's another important aspect of my disassembly toolkit. Next one, and maybe the biggest, determiner of success is something like this. This is a little driver kit here. This little kit is from Weehaw Tools. You can see here it's a micro precision driver set, but you get a whole bunch of different tools in this kit. You get flat heads in a bunch of sizes, Phillips heads in a bunch of sizes, Allen keys of a bunch of sizes, hex if you prefer, with each one of these marked on the side of it there. And I've got these guys standing up as these are the ones, as I destroy everything, these are the bit sizes that are most commonly used for me when I'm doing my disassemblies. So, I know that these two Allen keys are commonly used, and this is my Torx T10, T8, and T6. I like this set very much because Weehaw makes good bits, and I can actually buy replacement bits for these guys online with no problem. So Weehaw makes really nice bits, and also this little hex size is nice and straightforward. You can get this whole thing, and that gives you pretty much every bit you're going to need for pretty much every non-stupid screw type that's being used out there. Comes with this little handle. I've actually been using this little guy. This is a handle by iFixit. It's metal, actually. It rotates a little more smoothly, and you've got this extra knurling on the outside here, which allows you to get a little bit more torque, and I've been enjoying this guy. The other thing is that the bits are held in here magnetically rather than using friction, so they're very easy to get in and out, whereas they can get stuck on this guy, particularly with lubricated hands, because this is friction fitty. But look, I used this very successfully for a long time, so if you're looking for a nice driver set to use for disassembling, knives and other small tools, this is a pretty good one. Also has good setting, for like eyeglasses, things like that. So anyways, there's that. And then over here, I have my little foam caddy, which lives right off screen here. And in it, I have all of my various other tools that I use for my disassemblies here. Ranging from things like these little cotton pads here. These are little fabric swatches, actually. They're usually meant for gun cleaning, but they work out well here because they don't tend to leave all kinds of pulp. They won't shred as you drag it over a hard surface. They're very nice in that way, and you can buy them very cheaply. I bought like a $15 pack, a year ago, and I'm still going through them. These little guys are watch spring bar tools. They're very, very useful. They're very inexpensive, and they're great not only for taking spring bars out of watches, but also you can use this end as an oiler. Also, you can use this end to adjust the spring bars in watches, and they're a handy little shape. I'll use them to distribute grease. These two are just very, very handy and made very nice for my overall uses. Down here in this corner, I'll take things out here. You can see I've got a selection of very small little tools here. I got these little nails. Occasionally those come in handy for trying to push something out here. I've got a little pin here, which can be helpful for, any kind of puncturing sort of task, as well as if you need an ultra-thin little wire here. I've got a larger Torx bit that I've actually filed down a little bit on the end there to deal with Torx bits. Particularly South African makers will often use very shallow, very large Torx bits. Got this little spanner driver here. That works for a lot of Medford knives, as well as a lot of other screws, stupid screws, that is. Leatherman Wave is one of my better tools just in my life in general, but this is nice because it gives me a pair of pliers close at hand, as well as other tools if I need them to be there, so that's helpful. Right here, I've got myself a selection of Q-tips. These are just generic cotton swabs like you buy at the grocery store, and they're very helpful for getting in there, removing gunk. I mean, you see me all the time use them to remove the pivot. This is a slightly more pointy version, a little stiffer version of a Q-tip that I've been trying. Sent to me by a lovely viewer whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, but you are lovely, rest assured. But anyways, that's very nice. But the Q-tips are just, they're handy all around. This is another bit driver here. This one gives me very high torque, and especially when combined with this little bit kit here, which gives me full-size Weehaw bits in all kinds of torque sizes. This is really helpful if I've got a pivot that just does not want to come loose. Mind you, usually using more torque is not the solution, and in fact, very often it's the problem. You're likely to strip screws out, but when you come to a situation where you just need more torque, a little bit driver holder like this guy, coupled with this guy, absolutely helpful. This is a piece of very thick hard leather. Not only do I have it doped with some compound so I can use it to polish up, for instance, a screw or something, but also it's relatively stiff leather. So I can get in there, and if I need to spread apart two handles in a way that is absolutely not going to mar the handles, this is a great approach. This makes it very easy to get in there and do that and use it as sort of a pry tool that I'm sure will not damage anything. Right here I've got a pair of tweezers, which are useful for IKBS, little independent rolly bearings sort of disassembly, which is helpful. This is a fancier watch spring bar tool that works very well and is a little bit nicer, but honestly, I paid a lot more money for this. It's Bergeon, which is a well-known watchmaking company, but I found that these little guys work just as well. And so, I don't know, that was a little bit of a surprise to me. So I don't know that I'd recommend you buy one of these guys, even if you are into watches. There may be better tools out there than this one. This is a spare holder for the Weehaw bits, although like I said, since I've been using this guy, that's been okay. Back here, I've got a flashlight for shining a little light on the subject to get inside something, get up inside something, see what's going on. This is a Sharpie. Sharpies are useful. It's a permanent marker. Those of you outside the States, maybe with different brands. But these are very useful for helping to mitigate lock stick, particularly on titanium frame locks, coating the edge of the frame, the end of the lock bar, as well as the blade tang with a Sharpie will actually knock down the blade lock stick in a pretty substantial way, which I appreciate very much. This is some Loctite thread locker. This is the blue 242 stuff, and I also use it in this stick form. And I've been using the stick lately just because it's easier to control, but basically this is a great way to make sure that a screw that you want to put into the knife or whatever stays inside the knife or whatever and doesn't back itself out just through everyday use. So that's important. Right here is another Torx tool. This is very helpful for when you've got free spinning pivots or things like that, where you have to have a tool inserted in either side, because it's nice and short, and you can very often hold on to the piece with this in there. You see me use this on a regular basis. It's on the store as well. This is a paint pen that I actually use for signing Z-Hunters, because I live a very weird life. Patrons are eligible for signed Z-Hunters. This is Dewa Real Oil. This is a very good, very inexpensive, well, not very inexpensive, but more inexpensive oil for, oiling, well, knives or anything else. It works fine. It's not quite as nice as the Nano Oil in a lot of ways. I find the performance of these guys, particularly with the choice of viscosity, is a little higher. But if you can't get the Nano Oil for whatever reason, this is a really great second place. And so that's something I use on a regular basis. Speaking of the oil, these are 3 different kinds of Nano Oil, and you'll see me often use it in this form here, which is a pen. It's called the Nano Pen, and it's the same oil as in this bottle here. It's just done so in an applicator that is, well, it's kind of pen-like, so I can actually use this to put oil exactly where I want it, and even, onto something. And I use less oil this way, which is a good thing because I tend to use a little too much oil. But I use these 3 different weights of Nano Oil for a couple of reasons. The 10 weight is the one that you should buy if you're just looking for a generic oil. This is a good all-arounder, and there are very few knives for which 10 oil will just not work. The 5 weight CLP is actually something I've found myself using more often if you can't take a knife apart, because this will flow into, using capillary action, this will flow into areas and kind of unlock the knife a little bit more effectively. It's also very, very nice for if you have a very, very quick action on bearings that you just don't want to obstruct at all. And then the 85 weight is sort of the opposite. The 85 weight is very thick, and I have a whole video on high-end knife lubrication that talks about this a little more. But if I have a knife, for instance, that I know is never going to have a super smooth action, or where the blade is just so heavy that it doesn't matter, 85 weight works well, and it'll stick around forever. It won't travel as much as, for instance, the 5 or the 10 weight, but all 3 of those are helpful, and each one of them has their little goal and their area, and that's why I keep all 3 around. Although, like I said, most of the time I'm using the 10 weight, and most of the time lately I've been trying the pen. Back here we have Citadel Black Knife Oil, which is just to help prevent rust on the blades. This is Frog Lube here. This is, I've been told lately, and I don't know that this is necessarily true, but I've been told that Frog Lube is basically coconut oil, just with a couple of things mixed in there. And that's fine by me. And it smells minty, fresh, and whatnot. But the thing is, whatever it is pretty good at inhibiting rust on knives, and it is also, in the paste form, very good at inhibiting rust on liners. You do not ever want to use Frog Lube as a lubricant in your knife. It will gunk things up. It's not a great choice there. For that, I would use the Dewa oil or the Nano Oil, but it is definitely an option for rust prevention. I've got some Nano Grease here. There are many greases out there that work. I use the Nano Grease because I happen to have some, but there you go. And then this little guy is a loop. A jeweler's loop, and I actually realized recently that you can put this over the end of the over the phone camera here and then show things off. I don't have anything that interesting to show off, but you can see here that I can zoom way the heck in on the edge of this knife here and get a closer look at I'm going to try and play with that a little bit more often in the future. But this is very handy for taking a look at sharpening jobs, etc. Then finally, one piece of equipment that's maybe a little bit more advanced and that not everybody's going to need, but when you need it is absolutely crucial. And that's, hold on just a second here, slide that back into place. That's this little guy right here. This is a soldering iron. This is a terrible soldering iron. Anybody who does any amount of soldering should do better than this. But this is what you get if you order an $8 soldering iron off of Amazon or something like that. The reason why a knife guy might want, or gal might want a soldering iron, is that it helps to break down Loctite. So for instance, this little guy right here, this is a Klotzley knife, and this had, unfortunately, permanent thread locker applied to the pivot here. And so what I did is I used this little guy here, and I heated it up, and then I just held this right up against the edge of the, right up against the screw, that is. What that did is it heated up the screw. And I just did it for maybe 10, 15 seconds, and I would just kind of hold, try the screw. Hold, try try the screw, hold, try the screw. And then at a certain point, it got hot enough that the tension on this broke, and the Loctite broke, and I was able to rotate the screw out with very little torque. That was win-win, because I didn't need to get this any hotter than I needed to. I didn't run any risk of damaging the carbon fiber, but suddenly I was able to get that free. And so if you're dealing with thread locker on a regular basis, having a little soldering iron around like this can be a really useful part of things. But that does require slightly more advanced technique, and it's not something I recommend for everybody. Very often, knives that are held together with thread locker, well, okay, not very often. In fact, very rarely. But, you know, you want to be careful before you go down that route, because very often they do come with terrible warranties that are voided if you take the knife apart. So keep that in mind. But anyways, those are the tools that I use on a regular basis for disassembling and maintaining knives. If you just need to get one thing, I would get a kit like this right here, and then I would get yourself some kind of a higher-end oil, whether it's the Dewa oil, whether it's the Nano Oil, probably the 10-weight if you go in the Nano route. Right there, with this alone, you will be able to service a whole bunch of knives. Just using something very basic like the rubbing alcohol and a paper towel or something, you will be all set for a lot of things. Because I do a lot of this, I have more specialized tools. But this kind of a kit, coupled with some other basics, will get you a long way. But anyways, like I said, links to everything are in that store, and the link right below here. But I hope this has been interesting to you, that you found this interesting, and that hopefully this will keep people from asking those questions over and over again, but it'll be a good resource, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.